so before we get started, I want to show you a couple little setup tips that I use on my panels. This is a piece of Russian olive, like I mentioned before. This was a Russian olive that was already dying. It wasn't fully dead, it was already dying. The sapwood is a little soft, it's slightly punky, but it's in good shape. I can definitely use it. I'll just have to shape over some of this when I go back with a finish tool when I'm doing my finish sanding. When you're working with saws, table saws, band saws, chain saws, this wood is extremely dense and it will wear out your saws. So keep that in mind, but it is beautiful wood once it's wetted or coated, and it takes stain pretty well. It has to be really dry to work with wood, work with it for like furniture, but it can make beautiful furniture as well. It's a really underrated wood. I own a tree service company here in Western Colorado. These are an invasive species, so we try to get these out of the area in a lot of ways because they will consume an area and overtake native growth. So in that sense, Russian olive isn't very good. However, it is extremely beautiful and very dense wood. It's very, very hard on your saws. So keep that in mind. Now, this was a chunk, the last chunk we cut, that was just above the ground level, and the root flare was fairly large, and I couldn't get it to a sawmill. Nobody could handle it because the size it was so heavy. It wasn't very tall. So to have it slabbed in a slab form, it was too short for most of the mills around here. It was too tall. I didn't really want rounds cut off of it, just disc or biscuits, or cookies, whatever you want to call it. They're called all kinds of things in the industry. And so I didn't want to set it on a mill for that. And then also, it was pretty big in diameter, and I would have had to cut off a lot of the root flare anyway. So I did this by hand with my chainsaw. And it was just rough milling, which is a hit and miss kind of thing, especially with these kinds of woods that are so dense and so hard on your saws. It was a challenge. So as you can see, it's got some pretty rough damage on the back side that I've got to remove, and I've got to shape up all this and make this into something on the other side as well. However, to help me gain what I need from this to hold it in place and be able to carve it, I did take a piece of poplar strip and I just used sheet metal screws. I'm sorry, not sheet metal, drywall screws to hold this in. I have a couple of sawhorses from Home Depot. These are the nesting ones. I put 2 in there. That's a good height for me. And then I have the Harbor Freight 4.5-inch vise clamped to it or screwed to it. And now I can just take this spine, drop it in the vise like so. Sorry, I'm already sweating. It's hot out here. And I can just clamp this down like so. And what this does for me is it allows me to have a fairly stable workspace, and I can spin it around in different things. It makes it easier for me to work, makes it easier for you guys to see as well. So usually I'd be using ear protection. Unfortunately, my ear plugs have seen their last day, and I thought I had extras. I don't. So I'm going to be breaking that rule today, but I will be using a mask, and here we go. So I am using the 3M 60926 filters, and the mask is the 6864 mask. This is a pretty good mask. It's actually one of the cooler masks I've ever worn. Doesn't fog up very easily at all. It can be a little hot, but covers your mouth and nose, and it covers your eyes. So I really like this mask. It's not one of those fancy ones that has the airflow in the top, which one day I'll probably get, but this was, I think, like 40 or 50 bucks. Totally worth the money. I will also be using the Dremel 3000 today, which has 10 speeds on it. Most of this that I'll be doing will be at high speed. Do keep in mind that with such an aggressive burr, lower speeds can cause a lot of tear out. The higher speed you have, the smoother it works. But if it gets caught, it can fly out of your hand much easier and much quicker. So keep that in mind as well. You might want to use gloves. I typically don't, but you might want to do so.